Once a shining beacon of hope in Africa, South Africa dazzled the world. Modern highways cutting across breathtaking landscapes, world-class universities ranked among the continent's best, luxurious shopping malls, and thriving urban centres. It has one of the biggest economies in Africa, the first African nation to host a FIFA World Cup in 2010, and a land that was full of promise and opportunities. But today, that dream is crumbling. Potholes scar roads that once gleamed, youth unemployment is skyrocketing, corruption is rampant, and multinational companies are fleeing. Factories are shutting down, and families are left wondering, what went wrong? This is not just a story of mismanagement. It's a story of political failure, social injustice, and a nation in denial. In this episode, we expose how decades of bad leadership, corruption, and policy failures have brought South Africa to the edge. The African National Congress, ANC, has ruled South Africa since 1994. In theory, it promised freedom, equality, and prosperity for all black South Africans. In practice, decades later, millions of citizens remain trapped in poverty, struggling for basic services, while political elites enrich themselves.
The people of South Africa gave the ANC the responsibility to govern. And in return, the ANC gave them a kakistocracy, a government that is led by the most unscrupulous people and people who are not qualified. And the kind of a cadre deployment strategy that they implemented, it idealized mediocrity. So I want to cite examples here. We know of the collapse of state-owned enterprises. They collapsed under mediocrity, which was the deployment of the ANC. Now you had the SABC, which was handed over to a person with a questionable qualifications. The chairperson of the board, there was a scandal about her. Then there was Claudi Mutweneng, without a matric, running a public broadcaster. That was a disaster. You also had the SAA, as if running an airways, it's flying a kite. You give it in the hands of a mere teacher, a primary school teacher who have no experience whatsoever in aviation. That was meant to, that state-owned enterprise was not going to be effective at all. Where is SAA today? It has collapsed. It is not flying, it is grounded. Now, you have Denel, which has been struggling to pay their own staff. It is no longer the jewel of South Africa. You look at Transnet, you look at Eskom, all of these institutions, they collapsed under the weight of kakistocracy, under the weight of a cult of mediocrity. So we don't have a lack of resources. We have a challenge of mismanagement, we have a challenge of misgovernance, we have a challenge of a cult of mediocrity that was perpetuated by the ANC government for the past 30 years.
Thank you so much, Mr. Malada.
Renowned economist Johan van Loggerenberg says, South Africa has the potential to be the Asia of Africa, yet leadership has turned it into a cautionary tale. Corruption scandals, mismanagement of state-owned enterprises like Eskom and SAA, and the failure to implement real economic reforms show that the politicians must take responsibility for what is happening in the country. Blaming foreigners or immigrants is a convenient scapegoat, but who allowed them to enter the country? Who employed them? Who turned a blind eye at the borders? Political corruption at every level facilitated this chaos. South Africa's collapse is rooted in decades of corruption and mismanagement. Government officials, politically connected individuals, and executives at state-owned enterprises have prioritized personal wealth over public service. From mismanaged public funds to tender fraud benefiting people like Kat Matlala or Katiso Molefe, who are alleged to be involved in multi-million tenders. The very money, hundreds of millions, that could solve pressing problems like electricity, transport or education is being siphoned away. Even some places in rural areas do not even have public clinics close to them. That money can be channeled to provide something meaningful for the benefit of the people. State-owned enterprises like South African Airways, once a symbol of national pride, have collapsed under mismanagement. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens bear the brunt of this corruption, paying more taxes, earning less, and watching opportunities vanish before their eyes. South Africa's economic collapse is no longer a warning. It is real, and its visible factories are closing, stores at malls are closing, and unemployment lines stretching for kilometres. Once sustained by strong industries, the country's economic foundations are now shaky. Poor fiscal policies, over-reliance on extractive industries, and weak support for small businesses that could have created employment has left the economy fragile. Global giants are leaving. Goodyear shut down its Eastern Cape factory after 75 years, 900 lost jobs. Ford has downsized in Pretoria, 470 jobs lost. Glencore scaled back operations, 3,000 direct jobs lost, and 17,000 indirect jobs. Anglo-American restructured its platinum business. Steel manufacturing giant ArcelorMittal joined as well, losing 3,500 direct jobs.
If you are getting into the year and already you're being told that your job is on the line, so our members are very, very anxious. A lot of them are very scared, very worried about their families, and very concerned because at this point we have been engaging with ArcelorMittal South Africa in Section 189 consultation on this issue. In fact, we had our most recent engagement on Monday, and that's when they communicated to us that even at that point they still have not received any official confirmation from government, whether it's DTIC.
And Shell is selling off assets. Why? Because the environment has become increasingly unviable. Unreliable electricity, bottlenecks at ports and railways, rising costs, and policy pressures like broad-based black economic empowerment. As expert economist Dr. Nomsa Dlamini explains, policies like BEE, while well-intentioned, have often discouraged foreign investment and complicated operations, leaving the economy fragile. Add to that soaring energy prices.
The Competition Commission's first cost of living report reveals that electricity and water prices increased by 68% and 50% respectively over the past 5 years.
And there was a time load shedding was experienced every day, which affected many businesses, and you have the perfect storm. South Africa's GDP could have soared, but instead it struggles to hold the line. And here's the harsh truth. The more companies that close, the less tax revenue there is for the state, meaning even social grants could one day be a thing of the past. Factories shut, jobs vanish, and with them, the hope of millions. Is it bad governance, or it's just corporations that cannot withstand global completion? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Unemployment in South Africa has reached crisis levels, with more than 60% of young people out of work. Graduates walk out of universities only to discover that their degrees mean little in an economy where factories are closing, ports are congested, and multinational companies are pulling out. Recently, SAPS had a recruitment, and they received 1,049,000 applications. Highest number of applications since 1994, and a number of them were graduates. University lecturer Thabo Molefe warns, "We teach students, but they graduate into a country where opportunities don't exist." This isn't education, it's a pipeline to despair. And so the brightest minds are leaving. A brain drain that sees doctors, engineers, and skilled professionals boarding planes to Australia, Canada, the UK, and the US. Imagine waking up every day knowing your hard-earned degree won't open a door, not because of your talent or ambition, but because the system itself is collapsing. South Africa's infrastructure, the very backbone of its economy, is collapsing. roads riddled with potholes, railways in disrepair, and ports so congested that exports and imports grind to a halt. Eskom's repeated failures plunge the nation into rolling blackouts, increase in power prices forcing factories to shut down and businesses to bleed losses. These aren't just inconveniences, they are economic death traps. Business leader Lindiwe Mokoena put it bluntly. You cannot run a modern economy on failing roads, a collapsing electricity grid, and corruption in every department. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And indeed, it is happening. Jobs vanish, goods sit idle, and ordinary citizens pay the ultimate price through higher costs, endless commutes, and a nation that feels like it's slowly grinding to a stop. South Africa is facing one of the most complex social crises in the world. High crime rates, gang violence that could repel tourists away, dominate the news. But let's get real. Politicians talk about blaming foreigners, yet they are part of the problem. Corrupt border officials allowed people to enter illegally. Immigrants were offered jobs in private sectors. And while citizens struggle for water, electricity and housing, these systemic failures are ignored.
You've been promised that water will be restored, but until today, nothing has happened. What's your frustration?
It's a big frustration, because it's only empty promises. Those people would come week in and week out and promise us water. When a strike goes on like this, they'll give us water for 3 days, 4 days, and then the water goes off. Not notifying us, not telling us. You'll stand up and there's no water in your taps anymore.
Can South Africa be saved? There are steps that could make a difference. Improving energy reliability and infrastructure to attract and retain investment. Adjusting policies like BEE to maintain social equity while encouraging business growth. Encouraging industrial diversification beyond extractive sectors. Investing in education and skills, training to reduce unemployment and prevent brain drain.
These are not quick fixes, but without them, the cycle of collapse will continue. South Africa must act decisively to protect jobs, communities, and its future. South Africa's story is not just about politics or economics, it's about accountability. For too long, leaders have pointed fingers at history, or at global markets, or even foreigners. But the truth is this: a nation cannot collapse without the failure of those entrusted to protect it. South Africa now stands at a fork in the road. One path leads to reform, renewal, and hope. The other to deeper decay and instability. The choice belongs to those in power, but the consequences will be carried by ordinary citizens. So I ask you, who must take responsibility for this collapse? Politicians who mismanage the state, corporations that abandon the people, or corporations that cannot withstand global completion? Or is it the system itself that is broken beyond repair? Share your thoughts in the comments, because if South Africa can't find answers soon, the rest of the world may one day look at this country not as a beacon of hope, but as a warning of what happens when leadership fails.